Hey y'all, yesterday I went to my cousin's house and trying to help him do some work on his motorcycle. Now, my cousin, he's a West Virginia coal miner. One of the things he likes to tinker on in his free time is goofing with these motorcycles, and he's completely rebuilt probably over a half a dozen bikes, and they really look sharp. Y'all need to check this out. So we're looking here at my cousin's motorcycle. What do you think? She's a gem, ain't she? He's telling me it needs a little work.
It'll run.
The reason I'm here, these studs are stuck in this engine. Really common thing to have happen, especially on an exhaust with all the heating up and cooling down cycles. And this steel, it'll really get galled into that cast aluminum. So we're going to be heating on this, and I'm probably going to weld some nuts on those studs. And something you get into, welding on stuff. Stuck part removal is a big part of all kinds of automotive and construction maintenance industries. It's recycling, really. I mean, as of right now, this head's useless. If those studs are out of there and we can get good threads inside of it, it's fixed. Let's see what happens. Put a couple nuts on there and plug welded them on the end, and there was enough studs sticking out that I was able to tack a little bit of a tack to the stud behind the nut back here. That's not always the case, but if you can, it doesn't hurt. And that's the first heat cycle we got here too, which we don't know how much that's going to help or not, but those studs got hot, they've expanded, now they're cooling and they're shrinking. The aluminum and the steel is going to expand and contract at completely different rates, and that first cycle right there where the studs have gotten hot and they've expanded, now they're going to shrink. That may create movement. Not that I would try it without heating the aluminum, but every little bit of movement can make a difference. So I'm just about ready. I'm thinking to heat up on this aluminum a little bit to try to extract these things. And something I want to mention as far as before I heat this, I'm going to take this wire brush on a drill, and I'm going to clean up this aluminum around this area, around the outside where I'm planning on heating it. And the thing I want to mention about that, these aluminum oxides and possibly any kind of a coating, like some aluminum stuff, you'll find stuff that's been anodized or anything like that. A lot of times those oxides and coatings will melt at a temperature that's a whole lot higher than the aluminum itself. And if that aluminum starts to melt, you need to see it when you're heating on it. If I'm taking my torch and I'm heating on it, if it's going to start melting, I want to be able to see it. You might not see it if it's coated with those oxides and coatings and stuff. So the more you can clean that up, the better you can see what you're doing. And it's going to help too with that aluminum absorbing the heat. And you'd be surprised, even on a piece of steel. If you're heating up a piece of steel and it's got paint on it, it's not going to heat up right. You need to get that paint off there. That paint is like a shield, and you'd think, oh, that's going to burn right off there. It doesn't work that way. You can heat clean steel way quicker and easier than you can painted. So we're going to see about heating this up, and I'm going to clean it up first. Looks like I'm going to be trying to judge the temperature more by looking at it. Took a piece of thin metal and punched a hole in it. I want to cool the stud off without really cooling the engine off that much. Like a heat sink. Both broke off in there much deeper than they were, and that aluminum was really hot. You can see on the one to my on the one to the right there where the corner of that cast was actually starting to melt. And the body is small enough that
Okay, because here's real small.
oh yeah, that's real tiny. We've probably got a decent enough hole in both of them that if you want to just drill it to the metric size for the thread and run a tap, you're going to be able to do that.
Yep, I agree.
I wouldn't say you're perfect. I mean, a machinist with a milling machine could chuck that up and get it centered better than that. But that don't mean that, by God, you couldn't drill that with the right size metric and run a tap through it and it hold that freaking exhaust on there forever. I think we're at that point. Because, like, you can see if you look in here. See? We were just talking about how hot we've had this. Welded nuts on, heated it up. The nuts broke off and the studs were broke off, and instead of having the studs sticking out like when we started, the studs were broke off flush. We did manage to center punch and get nice holes drilled all the way through the studs. That turns it into a sleeve. Then we got an easy out into that hole. Heated it up, tried to easy out several times, not coming out. And now it's been heated enough, you can see where there's a slight amount of blistering right here, up here. On the inside there's some. So we're feeling like we could keep going with this and end up breaking the easy out in there. And I would say stop and give up now on trying to extract those things. The next thing's going to be getting the exact right metric drill bit and the exact right metric tap. And just since we've got such nice holes drilled through there, just drilling through there and tapping that out to a new thread, and hopefully whatever steel, if we're off center enough that some steel stays in there, then it'll just tap and stay in there forever, and it'll hold the stud that holds the exhaust. The thing is, at this point, since we don't think that heating that and pulling that out of there with an easy out is going to happen, you need to quit on it. Because if you break off an easy out in a hole like that, the option that we have now of drilling it out and retapping it is going to be a whole lot harder. An easy out's an even harder thing to drill out of there than a bolt. So as you can see, I failed to extract those in the way that I wanted to. And I would have to say that that's the second time this year where there was a steel or stainless steel stud that was seized inside of a cast aluminum part, and I was unable to extract it with standard methods. You know, if both those pieces were steel, the way that I went about doing that, I would say would almost be 99.9% sure that I could get those apart without having to do, you know, drilling and rethreading. And it's risky sometimes drilling something that's steel or stainless steel out of something that's aluminum, because your bit wants to walk off and drill the softer material. It doesn't want to drill the steel stud. So if you ever get to the point where you have to drill a steel stud out of something that's aluminum, keep in mind that the bit's going to want to cut the aluminum because it's softer, so it's easy for it to walk off. And because of that, you really need to step up your drill bits. You need to use really good sharp drill bits and do everything you can to make things work. But I guess I just wanted to mention we failed to do what we wanted to do as far as extracting them. I had that happen at another point this year on a turbo, and it's got me leaning towards saying that if you've got a steel stud in a cast aluminum part or an aluminum part and it's really been in there a long time, you might want to just go ahead and drill it out. The odds of extracting it with the standard method of welding on a nut and warming up the material doesn't seem to work. In all my stuck part removal experience in the drilling industry, I was virtually always dealing with a steel part in a steel part, and like I say, I have a high level of confidence of being able to get those things apart. But it didn't work this time. I'm going to show the video anyway. It may be, maybe some things on there that some people want to see. So there it is. Thanks for watching. One more funny little note on that episode over there at my cousin's. When I got there yesterday morning, he was walking out through the yard, in his front yard, and he said, just back on down in there towards the building. The ground's frozen. Well, I backed the super service truck down in there a little ways, and I was concerned. It felt like it was solid, but I was concerned because this truck's heavy. And so ended up being all right. At the time it was 22 degrees, 25 degrees, something like that. Well, the part we wasn't thinking of is during the time we were working on that motorcycle, the temperature had got up like between 35 and 40 degrees, and the sun was on his lawn. Well, you can guess what I'm getting at. I damn near got the super service truck stuck in his yard. And in order to get out, I had to go forwards and backwards, I think twice. And I had to go in four-wheel drive and lock the rear differential. It's got the electronic lock. And I'm telling you, I was so close to not getting out of there. Any of those things, even if I didn't have the rear diff lock, I think the truck would have definitely got stuck there. And even though he's got a lot of other vehicles and stuff there, he didn't have anything there big enough that would do any good to pull on something stuck in the mud if it weighs 12,000 pounds. I'd have had to call a wrecker, which would have been a hell of a thing. So it was, after we failed to get the studs out, it was another thing that was like, gee whiz, and I was trying to get home because we have a foster dog that's here. I've been calling him Beggin', and he's getting fixed today. And yesterday, I knew my wife was wanting to give him a bath, and this dog is over 100 pounds. And I was trying to get home there yesterday because I was hoping to be able to help her give that dog a bath. It's a long-haired dog that's big, and I was thinking, man, I need to try and help her with that. But we got that done, and I ended up not getting the studs out. My cousin spent his afternoon fixing ruts in his yard, and I had to wash the super service truck because I'd slung mud all up underneath and all over that thing. But he got the yard fixed. I helped my wife get the dog washed, and it all worked out. But anyways, stuff don't always go perfect.